I go into all the all the extra closing things to make sure, you know, just to make sure that we're buttoning this up, we're going to do it. I don't go into like bank account information right away, but I just make sure we're going through the application, make sure we get approved, and we're good. But presenting a big payment like that, it's not a big payment if you don't think it's a big payment, you know? So to him, and now the client right away, if he says, well, oh shit, I can't do $500 a month, you know, then we'll go from there. But I probably never would have hit him at the 500 if I didn't think he can pay for it.
What
But I
what
knew he
was
was
what
working. I
was his monthly income?
think it was like 5 grand plus the
There you
business,
go.
so probably like 10. So I went max all the way through because I
Yep.
knew he can pay for it, and I'm actually signing up his wife too. I mean, I'm working on that right now. So, and this guy, and here's what I told him. I always try and relate to people. I'm like, oh, you're a funeral director. I've been looking for somebody in Florida that I could send business to because I got everybody asking, what funeral home do I go to? What do you recommend? Which I don't, but I will, you know. But by saying stuff like that, and then he's going to send me business, I'm like, we're partners, we're working together.
Yep.
So I created a relationship with this guy, and you know, he probably will send me people. And if I have somebody in the area, I will do the same thing. So just having that relatability will, I mean, you do anything.
100%. I had a period. It was probably about two to 3 years ago now, where I was looking at my numbers and I was looking at like my average annual premium, and it was like $600 or something like that. And this is after a time it had been, 1,000 or so. So I kind of switched up lead times. But anyway, my average annual premium was like $600. Now, I want to preface this by saying you never head into this, or, that's not a number to look at to like we don't we just bring value to the clients, right? It's not about, hey, here's how much they're paying on average, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at your numbers over a stretch of time and you see something like that, that's a pretty good, way to be able to tell if I need to make some adjustments. Like if my average annual premium over the course of like 6 months was around like $600, the problem is I wasn't bringing any value. I wasn't bringing enough value. I was taking two surface level answers. I wasn't really digging deep to assign enough value to what I was helping people out with. I was basing it so much off their numbers. And so I asked somebody, a guy that was crushing it. I was like, how do you like write how do you write bigger policies, or how do you increase your average annual premium? And he's like, well, for one, it's get good at asking questions to bring value. But the other thing is just don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid to show bigger numbers. It's like when I write big policies, just because I'm not afraid to show it. Right now, you want to like, and as you go through this, you'll get a better feel for who you should like. Jason's been doing this a minute. He has a good feel for, like, okay, this guy makes 5,000 a month. I can show him 500 a month. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. Now, if he was making 1,200 a month, like if he was on Social Security only income 1,200 a month, no, it wouldn't make sense to show him 500 a month. You know what I mean? But the point there is to just not, like, sometimes when we can we we think about our own pockets when we show numbers, right? Like, oh, this would be a lot for me, so why would I show that to him? You know what I mean? Like, you may not want to pay 500 a month for a $10,000 policy, but that doesn't mean he won't at 81, right? So don't let what you think get in the way of what you show him. You know what I mean? And so, like you said, man, it's just about just treating it like it's normal, right? Just show the number, because the reason you got that is just because it's about the value that it's bringing. And then when we just make the number that we show them like it's normal, it's just like, okay, 500 a month, like no big deal. The problem is when we make it a big deal. You know what I mean? Because we're like, I don't know, 500 a month seems like a lot. I don't know if he'll do that. Most people buy something that's 80 to 100. This is five times that. That's when we kind of get in our own way. That's what I was doing a lot when my average annual premium was super low.
And also the questions that you ask, the preliminary questions, like maybe not with this guy, but like, are you looking for life insurance because you have someone you want to add to it, or you don't have anything set up? if they say they have a policy or they had a policy, gives you a good guide of what they are paying for it. So if they're, well, I was paying $150 a month, or I had a term that was 250, they've been paying it for like 20 years. So in the back of your head that like, I know we could pay 250 again, but where's he at? And then you just keep digging and digging. So that's how you get a good guide. Or if something like Bryce said, they make $1,200 a month, I'm not going to hit them with a $200-$300 payment. It's probably going to be like 60 to 80 or 100, under 100, somewhere in that range. But don't even think about the numbers. And I don't talk about numbers or even think about them, or if they ask a question
Right.
about it, until I know I'm in a position to be able to, that I know them a little bit. They know a little bit about me. I built a rapport. Like I'll refuse to like even give a quote. If somebody keeps going, give me a quote, give me a quote. And there's times where I've just been like, I don't have a quote. I can't do it. You're not even giving me anything. So I don't even know. And then just end the call
100%.
and waste time. So
I have a somewhat recent client that has bought a total of 4 policies from me. I'm trying to do the math. The first one was like 477, and then there were 3 that were each like between 270 to 290 a month. So 477, 270, 280, 290. He's got 4 policies with me. His goal was, and I'm going to go back for a second. To your point, Jason, the reason I was able to show him those types of numbers was when I asked the question, all right, Jerry, were you looking into this because do you already have some life insurance and you just want to add some more? Or do you not have any set up yet? And he made it so easy for me just because I asked that question. He goes, well, I had a $120,000 term that just expired, but I got it a while ago. I'm now trying to get enough coverage to replace that. But, I got some stuff going on with my health. And then he's like, and I was like, okay, but in my head, what's the first thing you probably think when he says that? Okay, but there's no way you're 76. There's no way you're going to be able to afford 120,000 now, right? That's just like where our brains kind of first go to. But he then followed it up by saying, I just went through the VA and I got set up I maxed out the plan that I could with them. And so at 76, it was 420 a month. So he told me he had just set that up, right? He's just set up a plan. He's paying 420 a month. So it immediately tells me, don't be afraid to show him 400-500 something a month, right? Because he just told me he got a plan. So like we know that we can do this by asking questions. And like you always say this, Jason, and it's so true. Like when you just ask some questions that just kind of tee them up, the client will sell themselves. He made that so easy for me. And I go, okay, well, let me see if I can find him something that's better than the VA plan that doesn't put him on a 2-year wait. Started with that one, brought him enough value there that he called me back a few days later and was like, hey, I know, I said this is my budget, but like more so than my budget, I want to get up to that 120. Can we stack some more policies to get to that 120? Sure. That's when I added on the additional 3, which took it from 470 a month to, an additional like 600 on top of that. Which is like, it's not common, but they're out there. And when you just ask some questions to make it easy for them to tell you what they need, that's when that type of stuff happens.
they will. They'll tell you exactly how to sell them. I mean, and you just listen, write it all down, take it in. So you know exactly, you need that ammunition, because we had a class with this before where it's like, how do we know how much to show them? It's like, I don't know. I mean, how much they're going to show you. And once you start, I've presented some before in the past where I've been like, okay, well, it's 80 some bucks a month. They're like, okay, do you have any more than that? Can I get more? And that's like, okay, I probably didn't dig enough, but still,
Yeah.
they're still going to tell you. They're definitely going to tell you when it's too much. But I've had people tell me the opposite way. But another thing too, when you're asking somebody about like, okay, you're 81 years old, like, what have you been doing? Like, why don't you have like, not with the guy I sold, but other people who are in their 70s and 80s. It's like, why did you wait so long? Like, you just put it off? Like, tell me. Like, and then they'll tell you, well, I just didn't, the guy can afford it, or just, put it off because I didn't want to pay for it. Just find out those things. And that's the time where maybe they might be like, well, I had one like 20 years ago. I had to let it go because of financial problems. I mean, just let them talk. And I promise you, they'll tell you.
So, Jason, that was the question
Yeah.
I was about to That was the question I was about to ask. How do you ask someone, well, not how do you do it, but someone that's in the funeral home business that's 80 years old that doesn't, did he not have anything?
I mean, he had something before, but yeah, but I didn't really get too much into that with this guy because I already knew that he was wanting something for his wife, and so I focused more on that. But for anybody else who, it's like the question is, why don't you have it? And so I think feel like some people are afraid to ask that question. It might be kind of rude, but it's not. It's like what have you done? Why did you put it off so long? You're like 77 years old. You got to sometimes put these people in the place they need to be at. It's like you're 77. Why did you wait so long? Like, oh well, you make them feel bad. Make them feel bad that you know that they should have had it a long time ago. And
It
and, and
just seemed,
that also gives them that they also are going to know that they're going to have to pay more because they're older. Everybody knows that. And if they
yeah.
don't, then they don't. Whatever. So.
It just seemed kind of ironic because of the nature of his business and to get a 40,000, I guess he got a $40,000 policy for 600 bucks a month or whatever it
It's
was.
actually only 20,000 because he's 81. But here's the thing too is actually I do remember now asking him, and I related with something else. I was like, you're in the business and you don't have life insurance. It's kind of like going to the hair salon getting your hair cut, and then the barber's hair is all jacked up, and he like laughed about it. So it just little things like that I just kind of throw in to relate with somebody. So yeah, now that you mentioned that, I did ask him about it. So just just be real with these people, and they'll do it. They'll do whatever you need them to do, which is get a policy.
100%.
Excuse me.
And
I got a,
you know,
oh,
no, yeah,
oh,
somebody have
that
a
was that
question.
was me. I got a quick question, right? So my question is, has there ever been a condition or a case where an applicant was denied life insurance?
Yeah, we're actually going to kind of talk about that today, but yeah, it'll happen all the time.
Okay.
If you're working, it'll happen if not every day, almost every day.
Okay. All right.
But we have a way to go. I mean, we have carriers that will approve, and AIG will approve
So that's
anybody.
our topic today,
Yeah.
Jason, is how to pivot. So to kind of it
Oh,
kind of
okay.
it
There
kind
you
of
go.
tease it up. But so we'll talk about this thing. The last thing I'll say to that point, Jason, is like, you know, that's why it's like the script that we use is so well designed to get people to start opening up and telling you this type of stuff to make it easy, right? And
Mhm.
so it's like when I would find myself struggling with getting people to open up, it's because I was going too far off script or just getting lazy and skipping things, right? So the re-looking to this because you have some and you're looking to add more. If they don't have any, ask them why, right? And to the same point, if they do have some, why do you feel you need more? Like I hear Clint ask that all the time, and it's like it challenges them to sell themselves, right? Got it. So you have some coverage. So what has you feeling like you need more? I had a guy earlier today that it was a 2-minute phone call because he was like, "Oh, I really don't. I really don't." I'm like, okay, there was something. Like you fill this out. I'm sure there was some reason. Like, what had you feel like you need more? Oh, I really don't need any more. But I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'm not here to waste my time. I'm not going to convince you why you need insurance. Like, you filled out the form. I'm just trying to find people that, like, I just sell to people that go, yes, I need more, and here's why. If you don't, I'm not like, well, have you considered the benefits of life insurance? Like, that's weird. This guy filled out the form. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not wasting my time. So, the point of those questions is not to get everybody to close. A massive point of those questions is to weed out the people that are wasting your time. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So, like, ask the questions to get the people that are serious to sell themselves, make it easy for yourself, but also to be more efficient, don't waste time with people that aren't going to ask those questions. So again, we talk about this when we do like our script review training. You've probably heard me say it a million times of like, make those things on their non-negotiables and don't just give people a pass if he's like, oh, I don't really know why anymore. I just want to see how much it costs. Don't take that at face value. Like dig deeper. Well, why? What were you thinking? What's the gap that you feel between what you need and what your current coverage is? Like what's the concern there? If they're not answering that, I'm not wasting my time trying to convince that guy. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Um, okay, so how to pivot. So I'm gonna ask Zach, Jason, hold off on answering this unless nobody else steps up. But for anybody else that's on the phones currently, who has had somebody who's gone through an application, gotten declined, and then gotten stuck there where they didn't really know what to do next, or that kind of killed the deal? Because it used to happen to me all the time. So is there anybody that's like submitted an application, got declined, and then it was like, all right, well, where do we go?
Oh yeah, that's like my biggest struggle
Okay.
is making that pivot. And even just like what to say and when to keep your mouth shut, but also bridging that time where you have to start another application, and also figuring out like why they were declined too, so you don't double up on.
100%. Okay. So biggest struggle is figuring out why declined, and then how to set up going into the next application, right? Why do you feel like that why do you feel like you lost the client there?
I think just like mostly the time. By the time you kind of get through that first part of the application, they've already trusted you with that information, and you can't tell them that they really got declined, but you have to kind of bridge that gap of like the chit chat. And there's been a couple people who don't want to really chit chat; they want to get it done, and it's hard to refill in addresses and everything before you can even get to the point where you get another approval.
Right. 100%. That was the biggest thing for me too. It's almost like it feels like it takes so much time to get through all of this. Now it's declined. Their patience is thin, right? And doing this again, they're it's too much for them, right? That's when you lose clients. Anybody else relate to that? We got a lot of brand new people here that aren't even on the phones yet. So, I guess just Jenny, but I know Zach, Jason, you guys have dealt with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to it real quick.
Yeah.
I think part of the process is teeing people up, letting them know, hey, we're going to narrow this down to a few carriers. I mean, that's part of the script. So if you narrow it down and they're going to know that it's not just one carrier approved, decline, whatever. What I do is, and Genevieve, I would write everything down. Write down even their social, their bank account, write everything down so you don't have to say, okay, what's your address again? What's your social again? Because that's when they get frustrated. But if you have everything written down on paper, you could just say, okay, so we're just waiting for the result on this company. And like I said earlier, I'm working at few companies at the same time to see which one's better for you. Okay, which one gives the best approval. And that way it just eliminates, they know you're working still. So, and I never say, oh, shoot, you're declined. Sorry, let me try this other company. Never say that. You always want to just be like, okay, so I'm still going. They don't know how long the application is. It could be, 20 pages for all they know. So just automatically go to that next carrier that you're going to go to and just plug it in as fast as you can. And then just, keep talking to them, keep small talk for a little while to let them know that, hey, we're still working on this, waiting for the answer. As I told you earlier, I'm working on a couple different companies to see which one's better for you.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason why this is we're spending an entire training on this is because once you it's a good problem to have, Jenny, right? If you weren't talking to people and getting people to make buying decisions, then getting people declined and pivoting would not even be a problem, right? So when you're in a place like, hey, I'm getting people declined, I'm like, sweet, go get more people declined. You know what I mean? Don't worry so much about it where you feel like you got to be the sharpshooter and everybody should get approved on the first try. Because I definitely don't. And the coolest thing about simplified issue, and simplified issue meaning quick underwriting, instant decision, is that you can do stuff like this, like we're going to talk about today. If it was a 3-week underwriting process, yeah, I'd want to be a little bit more of a sharpshooter, because if they get declined after 3 weeks, if it's tough to keep Betty on the phone for an additional 10 minutes to do another application, imagine if I had to call her back in 3 weeks and tell her she was declined. She would have gone and gotten somewhere else by then. So this is all about understanding who our clients are, and they just want to get the insurance. They don't want to deal with all this stuff. That's the value of simplified issue insurance. Does that make sense? As opposed to nurse, blood, urine, full underwriting. Like, are there situations where that makes sense? Yes. But for the most part, if our clients could just get the insurance without talking to a person, they obviously would, And so we need to understand that. And, again, none of this means anything if we're not bringing value. Like, if it's not about, hey, here's what the problem we're solving. But at the same time, I'm sure, if you've been on the phones at all, you may have had clients that open up, cry to you. You're like, you're super, it's this very, you feel this connection with the client, but then like halfway through the application, like, okay, now how much longer is this going to take? And you're like, damn, I thought we were cool, And so understanding that like it is kind of on us to keep this thing moving and understand that, we are on a bit of a ticking time clock with these clients. So how can we be as efficient as possible, right? And so that's kind of what today is about, because the reason that I like talking about this, because I used to struggle with it a lot, where I would get them excited about a plan. Hey, here's how it works. Here's the price. They're all excited about it. Go through the application, declined, and I go, oh, Zach, so unfortunately our application was declined. So if you'd like, we can try another one. And they're like, nah, I don't have time anymore. I got to go. No, like, this is too much. I thought I could just get the insurance. I didn't think it was going to have to be all this. Go. Right. And so I started realizing, like, okay, I got to do something to not make it be such a big deal. So exactly like what Jason was saying, the first thing, how you set it up better on the front end is, especially Jenny, if they have some stuff going on with their health, like, now you've been doing this long enough now to know that if you have a 62-year-old that only takes high blood pressure and like that's it, pretty good chance he's getting approved like Americo Eagle Select One, no problems, right? Of course, could they not be telling you some things in their health? Yeah, of course. But generally speaking, if they're like, yeah, I ride my bike every day, you know what I mean? Like, no drink alcohol, never drink, like, okay, if this guy gets declined, it's going to be insane, right? So, but a lot of our clients, they got some stuff going on. And so if we're like, it seems like we should be good for Americo, but I'm not, this isn't like a shoe-in, you got to let them know on the front end that multiple applications is possible, right? So I go, hey, Jenny, so like I mentioned, I'm a broker. I have access to basically everything when it comes to insurance. Of course, I'm going to try to help you get approved with the best one first, but I'm just letting you know, if for some reason this comes back, no big deal. We're just going to pivot over and try another one. And I've worked with a bunch of carriers. What I'm seeing in your health, there's like 6 that are coming up all within basically the same price range. And sometimes the way that this game works is it takes a couple tries to get one to stick. So I'm just letting you know, if for some reason our first application doesn't come back approved, no big deal. We're just going to pivot over to the second one. You know what I mean? And then I'll tell people, like, look, if you're willing to have a little bit of patience with me, I'm willing to work my butt off for you to help you get approved with a plan that's going to be the best possible plan for you. Is that fair? You know what I mean? And when you say some things like that, you kind of give yourself some grace of like, this isn't a perfect science. I'm going to work my butt off for you, but just stay patient with me. If it isn't like a, all just first try, doesn't go through. Does that make sense? So kind of setting that up on the front end, but then a couple things as well is, and this kind of goes into closing too, is show, like, if we are quoting Americo Eagle Select One, and then we're putting their health into insurance toolkits, and we see that there's a couple other carriers that could be our next options, a lot of times I'll give like a range, right? So I'll go, hey, Jason, it could be anywhere from, 80 to 100 a month, just depending on which one's approved. Obviously, I'm going to start with the one that's 80 a month, but just letting you know, if for some reason that one doesn't get approved, there's a couple others that we're going to try. Because again, a huge reason why pivoting, like going from one application to the next, can be a struggle is because you quoted them at 80, they weren't approved for 80. Now we got to try another one, which is 90. And now they're pissed because it's not the same rate that they thought it was. So if we just don't dig ourselves in that hole and you let them know that it could be anywhere from like 80 to 100, you give yourself some grace, right? Of like, if it doesn't come back as 80, I already told you that it's possible that it could be more than that. And so for what I've learned for me is that it, for one, lets them know that I'm at least going to try to get them the best possible rate. but it's also not such a big deal if we doesn't, because I already set the expectation that it could be more than that, somewhere between 80 to 100. Does that make sense? I'm gonna, does anybody, well, I guess, like, if I, like Braley, if I ask you, if I say, like, look at a quote with Americo, but use insurance toolkits as like my fallback options, does that make sense, or am I speaking Chinese?
Oh no, that makes total sense
Okay.
because I do kind of the same thing. I mean, the little bit I've talked to people, um, I've always kind of, or I've started telling them like, we're going to do a couple applications today, and then we'll just see what happens. That way, if they do get declined, I can just go into another one, and they're kind of prepared for it, I feel like.
Okay. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So yes, setting the expectation on the front end that it could come back, um, it could come back there a range. Like I've been doing it almost every time now. If somebody's got anything going on in their health, I just give them a range. I'm gonna show you guys what I mean by that. Just because most people probably have no idea what I mean. So I think it's always best when I just show. So let me share my screen. So we're on Americo. So Americo is our number one carrier. We write them the most for many reasons. 1990. Well, I'm too young for. Let's go 1957. Okay. And then I go Eagle Select is our main final expense plan that we write. Okay. So got a male. Say we're looking at 10,000 of coverage, non-smoker, 63, 64 a month, right? So not everybody, like, some of you guys have this. If you just started your training and everything, you don't have all this. So don't worry about this too much yet, but I'm just kind of showing you. This is how I always want to go with Americo first, but I use this tool, Insurance Toolkits, as like my backup in case I need to pivot to another plan. So I know which one to go to next. Okay. So type in the amount of coverage. We got a male. What did I say his date of birth was? 3/17/57. 3/17/1957. Non-smoker as well. Get quote. Okay. So in this situation, right? And again, I didn't type anything in the health, but I might go, all right, Braley, it's going to be anywhere. If we look at a $10,000 plan, it's going to be anywhere from like 64 to, and then I look at these other options on here, right? And I go, all right, these could be some fallback options. It could be anywhere from 63 to 67 a month. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if I can't get Americo, and again, I didn't type anything into the health, so this is just like a perfect health quote, whatever. But, Aflac 65, Mutual of Omaha 66, CVS 67. Let's say I had typed some things into the health, like high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever. I kind of know, all right, if this one doesn't come back, here's some other ones I could try, which Insurance Toolkits is telling me most likely would get approved based on the health that I gave to them. Does that make sense? So I just kind of let him, so I can give him that range and feel good about being accurate. It's going to be anywhere from 63, 67 a month. Of course, Braley, I'm going to try to get you approved with the 63 first, but I'm just letting you know if that one doesn't come back for some reason, there's a couple other options that are coming up, 65, 66, 67 a month. Does that make sense? So again, I'm just giving myself grace for what some rates could be on top of that. Now, yeah, Jenny, you have a question about that?
Well, a little bit along those lines. So would it be almost smarter to get payment information on your first go round, even if you get like on Mutual where it says not likely to get declined? To get declined, like, would it be smart to get payment information, kind of allude to the fact that they were approved on the first shot, to kind of keep them a little bit more focused through the next application?
Yeah, I mean, look, yes, like getting payment information getting all the information makes the next application easier because you already have basically everything you need and you don't need to re-ask that stuff, right? But at the same time, kind of like this, what I was going to say next is if I'm kind of iffy, like I'm filling out let's say Aetna is the next one I want to go. Like I'm filling out Americo and Aetna at the same time, right? So I'm filling out the application, and this is kind of leading into exactly how to pivot. Like I was kind of more setting up. This is what you can do to make the pivot easier, but this is how to pivot. So I start filling out the Americo app. He gets the text. He reads me the code back. It comes back um, tier 2 or not approved. I don't say anything. I just continue filling out the Aetna application. Does that make sense? Like we get ourselves in trouble when we go, oh, okay, our first one didn't come back as approved. As opposed to now I know that, but now I'm just filling out Aetna. And then I'm going to fill out the entire Aetna application and see what they say. And now, if that one doesn't get approved, then go, hey, again, you just make it no big deal. Hey, so all good. That one came back. We're just going to try this with a different one. You're going to get a text right now. If you can't, just read me back that 6-digit code that you just got. You know what I mean? That's how you go from one to the next without making it this whole big deal that, oh, unfortunately, I'm sorry, it didn't come back as approved. So it's just making it smooth, no big deal, and just assuming like just keep it moving on to the next one. Now, while I'm doing that, there's usually some reason why. We probably missed something in terms of health. Just want to confirm you got, high blood pressure, diabetes. Is there anything else you can think of you've ever had in the past that you either used to take and don't take anymore, any conditions that you've had and since been cured from? Like there, a lot of times when we're getting stuff declined is because we miss something in terms of the health. So while you want to make the transition smooth and not this big deal, and you also want to be asking some questions about what else do you think that they could be seeing that you haven't told me so far. And what I've found is it's typically prescriptions that they used to take that they no longer take, or things they've been prescribed that they just never got filled or refused to take, or conditions that they've had in the past and since been cured from. Right. So I think a lot of times we get too stuck on current conditions, current prescriptions. But when insurance companies do their underwriting check, they're looking at basically the entire history. So what have they had in the past, or what prescriptions may be on there that you just haven't told me? That's a lot of times you'll get some more stuff where you go, okay, cool. Now I can punch that into toolkits, ask somebody about that, and get a little bit more specific with which company I need to look at next. So filling out 2 applications at the same time, not making it a big deal about moving from one to the next are like the biggest things to do to just pivot. And again, this is one of those things where, if you haven't been on the phones, you kind of got to deal with this for this to be relevant. But hopefully me telling you this on the front end now, you kind of know, all right, like it's definitely possible that it gets declined. Let me not use that as a reason why we don't start another one to try to get them approved somewhere else. Zach, Jason, you got anything on that, or does anybody have any questions about any of that?
No, I'll just say, pretty much all good stuff. One thing that I really do, like we've all been saying, I don't ever tell somebody that they've been declined. It's kind of just like in conversation. One thing that Jason said that you guys should all really do, unless it's Americo, because you can kind of just like, even if it gets declined, you can still go through the app and see what you wrote down, is write down everybody's stuff. Because the last thing you really want to do is ask somebody, like Jason was saying, a bunch of their information. And as long as you have their information and you're having a conversation, you start bringing up legacy safeguard and other kind of stuff, it kind of gives you the time to switch over to a different application. And usually I'll just tell people, I'll be like, oh, okay, Bryce, just going to make a small pivot here. I'm not really liking the rate that they're trying to give you. And it makes it look like you're really out there shopping and doing what you're supposed to do to find them the best rate, And usually people are really cool with obviously you trying to save them money and get them the best value for their dollar.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. What I also say, if I see a decline, I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to let this one go through underwriting. I already told you, working on a couple different, that's going through underwriting right now. That's kind of pending. So let's go ahead and, work on this one here and see which one's going to be better for you. So just them hearing a decline just will discourage people. And then they'll be like, I knew I shouldn't have done this in the first place. That's why I didn't do it years ago. So people just kind of think if you just keep them on ice the whole time, and they don't know, they don't realize how long it takes. But if you're quick about it, like I said, to reiterate again, yeah, definitely write everything down. That's years ago I didn't do any of that, and I had to ask people again, and lost deals by just, okay, so what's your address again, and what's your social? People are already hesitant about that in the first place. Even if you have a rapport and they feel good, you don't want to have to ask them again if you don't have to.
So again, you said do 2 applications at the same time. So you want both applications up on your screen and filling out the items simultaneously? Or do you just wait until you're declined on Americo first?
I mean, Bryce likes to put them both up, and that's fine. I mean, I usually kind of know where I'm going to go, but again, if somebody has like perfect health, even if they do, maybe they get a select two or they get declined for any reason, I got all my stuff just ready up top. I mean, me and Bryce have about 60 or 70 tabs. I think I'm up to 100 now. How many you got, Bryce?
Well, I actually just shut them all down because my computer was going to explode. So I'm back down to like 17.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you can have them both up. I mean, if I would, I mean, but I have mine already ready to go. I mean, I'm used to them by now, so I already know I could zip it through. So,
and just don't get flustered. Like if I'm telling you right now, people get declined all the time. Hopefully that tells you, okay, no big deal. So like when you do your underwriting, the point of me showing my screen with Americo and the other ones is to like show you like I have like 3 to 4 in my head of like these are the ones I'm going to go with. So if Americo doesn't come back, it's no big deal. I like almost expect it. Cool. Boom. Next one. You know what I mean? And so just to make that transition smooth and not just don't get flustered. You know what I mean? Just keep it moving.
And to be honest with you, most people who get declined, or if you run a client and it gets declined, they've probably been declined before. That's why you're on the phone with them before, because the last agent they spoke to probably didn't have the tools or the knowledge to, get them coverage. And then also too, at the end, usually if a client does get declined from a couple people, when I finally find them coverage and we're at the end, I say, hey, Bryce, you may get a couple letters from Transamerica and Americo in the mail. Just disregard those. We ended up going with Ethos, so I just declined your application with those two. So you could just toss those so you don't get confused.
Yeah,
That's real
because they
smooth. I
will
like
get
that.
letters if they get any sort of decline, and so you just want to let them know that those are
Right.
coming.
Tell them you declined the application versus
Yeah.
they got declined.
Absolutely. Any other questions about that?
I guess just
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
sorry, just to clarify on that. So like Jason, like I have been writing everything down by hand. It's just that do you feel good about like just doing small talk while you're refilling in the information? Or do you feel like you kind of lose their attention and focus if you kind of bring up some random stuff and questions about their grandkids or stuff while you're refilling out after a decline?
No, I mean, you got to keep talking. You definitely don't want to be quiet. I mean, if you're too quiet, then it's, for a little bit it's okay, but I would say just keep talking to them. Just, you have a whole sheet of everything you know about this person, so you can talk about whatever you're talking about earlier, or whatever you built rapport with them. So I would just keep talking, and maybe let them know kind of what you're doing, because obviously they've already given you a couple codes, and you're going to be asking for another code in a minute. So it's from a different company, so you kind of tee them up on that too as well. But yeah, definitely don't have too much silence. I mean, I wouldn't.
Okay, but you don't feel like just the way you carry on a conversation that you kind of lose people and they're like, oh, this is taking so long, or like, why are we talking about this now while we're in the middle of doing this? So I had 2 people in the last week that I feel like I just kind of lost them after that first decline.
I think you just kind of got to fill it out. You know what I mean? Like versus just know how the conversation was going. There's some people who you could just put on mute and they're just going to keep talking. And then other people don't mind just sitting there while you're filling out another application. Like I told a lady, oh, just forgive me for a second. I just, transferring your information over. And then I'll type kind of loud. Me and Jason was talking about that just so she can hear me typing and, and hear that I'm actually working.
I say everything I'm doing. So as I'm going through the health questions, I'm like, no, yes, no. Like, you know what I mean? That's like people get weirded out when it's just like dead silence. And so I'm just kind of like mumbling, but they just can tell I'm just like doing something. You know what I mean? And then so I think it's a combination of that. But yeah, like you can a lot of times buy yourself some time. If you're like, ah, shit, I got like 14 things I need to fill out. I'm not going to have to ask them anything here because I already have it. Let me get them to start talking. So how many grandkids you got? They'll still spread out. You know what I mean? They travel, who house you guys go to for the holiday? Just like stupid stuff. And then they might just start going down this path. It's like, all right, sweet. I just bought myself some time. Let me get this filled out. Cool. Hang on real quick. What state were you born in? You know what I mean? Boom, you're right back in it. So it's so much of this is a feel thing. A lot of this is admittedly like an experience thing. If you're like in your head, like reading every application question because it's your first time doing it and you're like, oh shit, and you feel like you're moving slow. Yeah, like, I can tell like it's like a lot of this is like a tap your head, rub your belly, same time thing. You know what I mean? But I think it doesn't hurt to just like, I don't want it to be weird for them. So and there's always somebody talking, whether it's me or them. And if they're not talking and it's just me filling out the application, I'm just kind of like reading out loud when I'm filling out. You know what I mean?
I'm on Zoom right now.
Cool.
But Bryce, I have a question. It's
Yep.
Rihanna here. So you're using the insurance toolkit platform, right?
Yes.
And because I mean I'm not making calls or anything. I just finished the onboarding process, and I'm deciding because we have that option, and then we have the integrity, the
The Life Center.
the Life Center. So what's the difference?
It's a great question. I don't really
Great
use
question.
Life Center, so I'm just showing you what I do. Does anybody, I don't know, Jason or Zach, have you guys started using Life Center?
No.
I've been using it a little bit when we lost toolkits for like that week.